Hello. Let me turn on a light here. Wash everything out. Welcome to my live stream. I'm Chris. I'm your host. And I am pretty exhausted, but I'm very committed to continuing with Inktober 2018. Brendan Sellers, welcome. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. I'm just organizing my workspace a little bit here. This was the absolute soonest I could get going. Hello to Nathan. Hello, Shaker Hook, I think. It's really nice to have some people here. I know it's late. It's been a long day. I was supposed to be able to get out of work today at 6 p.m. my time, and I was hoping to live stream by 7. But I sell cars, and I had an appointment that was at like 8 o'clock, and I wanted the sale, so yeah, had to push something later, and it was this. But even though I'm tired, I'm definitely looking forward to drawing today. Oh my gosh, it's my old coworker Colin. Dude, it's awesome that you made it here. Shirley, hello. Vedata, hello. J. Andrew World, Eric Whitehurst, C. Kim. Thank you. It's really nice to see that a bunch of folks are here today. So, if I'm going to say that I put in a 12-hour plus day at work, I want to tell a work story. Let's see. C. Kim says, I'm drawing or school and was watching your channel and blam you are live. Okay, well, cool. I finally clicked the bell icon so I got notified. Thank you. Yes, if anybody wants to get notified, don't just subscribe. Click the bell icon on the main page, and that way you'll get an alert that I've got either a new video or I've gone live. Good idea. Do the do. I have to right now because I am dragging. Chris, have you read The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina comic? I haven't, but I'm extra curious after seeing that new trailer for the Netflix TV show. I think that looks cool. Okay, plenty of folks here. I can't keep up with everything. So today's prompt for Inktober was roasted, I think? Right? Let me think for a second. Maybe it wasn't roasted. Maybe it was I'm so tired. Let me pull it up. What was the actual prompt word for today? Let's get it right. I'm right. Roasted. Roasted. So I was thinking, roasted could mean like, in a comedy sense, you're roasting people. Of course, I think of like roasted chicken. But then I thought of like characters that are burning or are burnt. And it's October. I love horror movies. I sketched out a Freddy Krueger, and I guess he's actually pretty well fleshed out right now. So let me grab a brush pen, and I'm going to start doing some of the important outlines to delineate the just the outline, I guess. I'm so tired. I guess I'm not thinking as fast as my mouth is speaking. So I've got a work story, but I won't use any names because this isn't to make anybody feel bad. It's just amusing. So today, no, not today. Jesus, actually, it wasn't even today. So like, that's just sounds bad. Brendan is also doing a Freddy Krueger, and Shirley guessed it. Yep, that's Freddy. Or at least that's my goal. So anyway, I was at work once. It was quite a while ago now that I think of it. And you can go out on test drives, right? And we also have a showroom where, you have like a couple nice cars and all the office stuff. And you go through the showroom and you can get out onto the lot where all the cars are. And to go out onto the lot, you go through these two double doors, and they're the electric sliding doors. So when we put a car in the showroom, there's a way to just open them even wider. You sort of just turn off like the sliding part and you just open them. Well, someone went out on a test drive on the car that was on one of the cars that was on the showroom floor, and then the sales consultant came back and he started trying to back the car in through the sliding doors without like telling anyone or anything, and I'm standing up front and I'm like, no! And I have to run over because the guy would have just driven through the glass doors. They don't work like that. Oh my God. I know it sounds pretty minor, but in practice it was kind of hilarious watching this about to happen. I was like, no! We were like moments away from somebody just casually, slowly driving through a window. What kind of pen is that, Chris? Ah, good question. This is by Sakura. They're the manufacturer, and it's called Pigma. This is the FB fine brush. It just is sort of smaller. They've got like thicker ones as well. It's just an ink brush that I happen to be comfortable with. Let me check on something. It looks like I'm having a little trouble with the camera maybe focusing, so I'm just going to double check that I don't have the autofocus checked. Bear with me. And it was. So. Okay. There. Now at least this won't sort of like alternate between sort of trying to focus on this and anything closer. So he was driving inside the building. No, he had already taken the car out, and it was time to return it. And instead of just sort of parking nearby and having us open the doors all the way, he was about to try to just back it up and like hope that they opened sliding wise and that he would fit in that space. It was like, oh my God, no. Hey, I'm doing fine, Coleman. Anyway, so that was just a small but very entertaining thing that happened a while back at work. I feel like every day is actually fairly interesting at a car dealership. I will say that. Now that I think of it, that would probably be a good setting for like a workplace sitcom, a car dealership. Could easily have all sorts of guest characters come into that kind of environment. But yeah. Oh, whatever. The trick with Freddy is that he's just got so many lines, and you have to like darken the important ones that will like delineate who he like his anatomy lines, but then you have a lot of texture to represent various sort of burns, and it's sort of tricky to make it all stand out properly. Not that I'm an expert, it's just something I'm thinking about, basically. But if I can get at least most of it right, it'll be a lot of fun to work on the details. The actual details should be a lot of fun. So here we go. So let's see, today is Wednesday night. That means that tomorrow is day one of the New York Comic Con. One of my favorite conventions. I think it gets the most visitors still. A little more than San Diego. About the same size really, but just a little bit more maybe. And yeah, unfortunately, this is going to be the first year since it started that I won't be able to attend. I just really didn't think it would be responsible to spend my money on travel right now. And I'm glad budget-wise that I didn't book it or anything. Like it would have really put me in debt to go right now, unfortunately. But at the same time, I just miss not being able to go because I've gone to every previous one, and I always see a lot of my friends there. I see one of my best friends from college lives in New York, and my fiance and I always visit, like, him and his wife and his daughter, and it's like a really special time that I value a lot. Um, it's one of my absolute best friends in the world, and we both love comics, and our families love comics, so it's always like just a really fantastic weekend of just doing nothing but comic stuff and New York stuff, eating well, and walking around the city at night. I really do love New York City, um, and so I'm missing it right now. I'm missing it like a lot right now. But maybe next year things are different. We'll see. But that's what's on my mind these days. Let's see. See if there's any good questions. My favorite horror movie is Teeth. Oh, Teeth. Okay, he corrected himself. I think I've seen that one. I know what you're talking about. San Diego Comic Con got too big for its britches about 10 years back. More fun before it exploded. I don't think it's just the size per se, so much as two things. One, San Diego Comic Con, it's closer to LA and Hollywood, and it really became very pop culture focused and movie focused as compared to purely comics focused. Hollywood is like, oh, there's a lot of crossover appeal between what we're producing and what this audience's interests are. So that hurts it a little bit, in my opinion. And then second is the actual San Diego Comic Con Convention Center. Its biggest sort of venue, Hall H, can't really fit that many people, and it takes too much time, I think, to empty it in between. So people that get in there tend to stay in there like for pretty much the whole day. Anyway, you can only get, like, I don't know, a very small portion percentage wise, something crazy small, like not even 5% of the people that attend the convention get to Hall H. So, and that's where they have the biggest sort of reveals and stuff like that. So, it just makes it harder to have fun. Okay, I just got a super chat. C. Kim, thank you very, very much. That's very generous of you. It's sincerely, sincerely appreciated. Let's see. Mikey Jesus says, I work for the first comic shop you ever went to, trained there, but work at the Harvard location. Oh, okay. Oh, Mikey, you work for NEC. Yeah, right on, man. That's that's awesome. I love NEC. Like, they're a huge part of my childhood and my love for comics and stuff. That's where I discovered so much, including the Tick. So that's really cool, man. That's a great store. I hope it's doing well these days. I don't get back to Boston a whole lot, so I only get to see NEC every once in a very great while. I hope it's still going strong. Man, back when I discovered it, it was doing great. Royfield Brown, hello. Yeah, I remember you, man. You used to come to my live streams like a year ago or something. Nice to see you. Thank you for dropping by. That's much appreciated. All right, let's get some bold lines on some of this stuff and try to move somewhere productive. Freddy's such an interesting horror character because he's quite lanky and strange looking in that regard. It's creepy in a, like, so many horror movie killers are huge and monstrous, or at least muscular, but Freddy's really, like, just lanky, skinny, like, kind of creepy in a very different way than a lot of other killers and monsters. And of course, when he's done well, it almost doesn't even matter what he looks like as a person. Just his idea of attacking you in your dreams where you're completely vulnerable. I mean, where are you more vulnerable at all than when you're asleep? So the idea of attacking you when you're at your absolute most vulnerable is just a good solid premise to build on, you know? And that's not to say that every Nightmare on Elm Street movie is good, because actually at least half of them are pretty bad, actually. But I still kind of like it for what it is. All right, let's see if I've got any questions. Karen says, I am here. Aldi, nice to see you again. I see Kim says, I've heard it's Catwoman bad, but that must be referring to something else. I'm not quite sure what. Mikey says that his comic shop is doing as well as comic shops can do. Well, that's all you can really hope for these days, so that's nice to hear. Big fan of NEC, the comic book store chain that I grew up with. Hope I can get this line straight. I'll make it work. It's hard right now to feel like I'm doing a good job because I'm just so tired. My concentration is definitely less than it typically is, if that makes sense. I'm having a hard time concentrating and focusing, that's all. So if I go quiet, it's because I'm losing focus and I need to sleep at some point. But I don't want to. I want to do this. Alright, that's not too bad. That's not too bad. Don't know what sounds those were. I was just sort of making sounds to amuse myself. Oh, that Freddy Krueger looks like a bad gentleman. Why were you worried about comic book stores? Maybe that's related to something else. I'm not worried about comic book stores. Sleep is for the weak. Boy, that's the truth. This could be the premise for a Nightmare on Elm Street film. A comic artist falls asleep drawing Freddy, and Freddy pops out of the drawing in his dream. Well, yeah, go back to, was it Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5 that had the comic book artist? I think it was. And he makes himself into sort of a Punisher type superhero, and Freddy Krueger just cuts him up like paper. It's not violent at all. It's actually one of the worst deaths in the series. Eric Whitehurst says, I'm struggling to find a good female-driven comic to read from DC or Marvel. Been looking a lot on Reddit and can't find a good one to read. Do you have any suggestions? I'm not reading a lot of modern stuff right now, so that's a little tricky. And I think that sometimes my tastes are quite different from where everybody else's are. I really liked the She-Hulk run by Dan Slott, where she was working as a lawyer full-time. I thought that those adventures were great. Excuse me. I had to eat some popcorn. That's all I've got here. I just had dinner, but I'm still hungry. Oh, you know what? Fables has some pretty strong female protagonists. That's a Vertigo book. That was pretty good. So was Y the Last Man, actually. I mean, there's only one male character, and then there's like two supporting female characters that are like, you know, basically co-leads. Those were that was all pretty fantastic. That comes through DC. I think that I don't know. After that, I'm getting a little Blurry. Let's see. Wow, got some super chats. So, Mikey Jesus says, "Have I read, enjoyed any of the Freddy comics?" No, I don't think I've actually read any of them except for the Ash versus Freddy versus Jason comics. I've read those and I got a little bit of a kick out of it just to sort of see what they could do with it. They weren't great, but they were fine. I think that's it that I've read for Freddy comics. Cool question. Can't think of any others that I would have ever actually sat down and read. Well, I'm a little bit more of a fan of Jason Voorhees, Friday the 13th. Royfield Brown, thank you for the super chat. That's very generous of you. He says, "You are doing the God's work, sir. Keep it up." Well, I don't know if I go that extreme, but it's a very kind compliment, and I accept it and I appreciate it. Thank you very much, sir. How's your podcast going these days? Got that right? You're from England and you do a podcast? I think I remember that right. Let's see what we got up here. There's not a whole lot that we need to do for the hat, so let's just sort of flesh that out real quick. And then once I finish the hat, maybe I'll just focus. I'll do his forearm since that's in the front. And while I want to do all this sort of like stuff in the head, the face, and that's where it'll like really look cool, I can't ignore the rest of the drawing at its expense because I can get bogged down in details, especially when I get tired. I can like just start having fun making texture. Fables has a spin-off called Fairest, focusing on the princesses. Yeah, great recommendation from Sigamigs. That's very cool. Brendan Sellers says that the Freddy comic book scene from Nightmare on Elm Street 5 that I was just talking about is the only time someone other than Robert Englund played Freddy in the original series. Interesting. Royfield says, "I'm flying back to England tomorrow to do a live show." Oh, a live show. You should plug the link in the chat window. Maybe a few people here will catch it. Maybe a few people will catch it archived later. You should just... oh, you know what? Excuse me. I say that, but if you put a link, YouTube automatically blocks it, and I don't have a moderator set up to help you with that. Sorry. But if you want to just name the name of your show at least, maybe some folks will check it out that way. A live show sounds fun. I would love to do like a live show sometime for something like Comic Tropes. I'd have to think about exactly what I'd talk about, but I've been on some panels before at like SPX, the Small Press Expo. I've been on a couple panels there to talk about like sort of comic book stuff. It's been a long time. But I enjoy, obviously, sort of being a host and a teacher and sort of taking on that role. I'm sure that's fairly obvious. Let's see. You can use tiny URL. Oh, I didn't realize that. How's Inktober so far? I'm only doing weekly because I've been really busy with college work and stuff like that. Hey, I completely understand. That's Rosaku. You know what? I love doing Inktober. I'm glad that I'm forcing myself to. At the same time, like, I work a lot of hours right now just to make ends meet, and it's an extra big challenge this year just to force myself to do this because I worked a little over 12 hours straight at work today, and I would just really, really love to fall asleep right now. That's what I would like to do. But I've sort of made this commitment, and once I make a commitment, and it's like a commitment to my viewership because I said I'd do it. I can't not do that. That's just who I am. Like once I commit to something, I have to see it through if I'm at all physically able to. I just hate letting people down. And honestly, that's not like really a good thing per se. I prioritize others over myself. I do, and it's actually like a character flaw. You realize these things about yourself as you get older. You try to address them, but you also sort of have to accept some of it. Because there's definitely like benefit to pleasing others, but I don't know. It's just that I do it too much. I don't like letting other people down. By the way, the channel hit 25,000 subscribers today, so thank you all of you. You all made that possible. You've all watched and subscribed, maybe shared or recommended it to people. So 25,000 feels like a big number to me. That feels like an accomplishment. I'm very happy about that. That really feels nice. So that's really cool. Thank you. You all made me feel pretty good about myself today. You guys did that. And I'm excited. I'm very excited for the next episode I'll give you guys this Sunday. I think it's going to be a pretty good one. I hope so anyway. But I think it'll be funny. There's some. I think it'll definitely be informative and interesting. I'll have a little guest star cameo from another YouTuber who's got an even bigger audience than me. So that's kind of fun. There's some silly location shooting. Anyway, I don't need to just tease you. I'm sure you'll watch. You guys watch everything, so that makes me feel great. Okay, whew. The channel's grown a lot since I started watching. Great channel here, thank you. 25,000, excellent. Thank you. According to Social Blade, you'll hit 100,000 subs in a year. Yeah, I don't know how accurate that is. 100,000 within a year? They're probably basing that off of like channels that are like maybe have like a broader appeal, like they're purely personality based maybe or something like that. I don't know. I don't know. That's interesting. I wonder. I've said before that I intentionally don't watch other YouTube channels that discuss comic books because I don't want to be accidentally or even intentionally influenced by a similar or a content creator that covers similar material. I don't want to accidentally sort of rip anything off or anything like that or even be tempted. So I don't watch it. So that said, I just realized that I don't actually really know what, like, I've got a little bit of an idea of who some of the most popular channels are. I want to say, I'm pretty sure Comicstorian is popular, Comics Explained, Comic Book Girl 19, and maybe Linkara. I don't know if those are, like, necessarily the top ones, but I've heard of all of those. But I don't know what any of their subscriber counts are, so I don't even really know what the potential for my channel necessarily is. I know I've got goals for myself of what I could do with the channel with more and more subscribers, but I don't actually really know what what a realistic expectation is. Maybe I should at least like sort of look at their main page to see what their subscriber counts are. Because that wouldn't really like necessarily influence my content production. I'm sorry, I'm thinking out loud. I think it's thinking out loud. All right, there's also Comic Drake. Comic Storian is at 1.9 million? 1.9 million subscribers? Really? That's humongous. Wow. Does he talk about stuff other than comic books or something? 1.9 million. That's way above what I kind of thought like there would be for a comic book audience. He must make a very healthy living. I met that guy once. Well, like he didn't know who I was, but I'm just saying, like I saw him at a convention, and I was like, "Aren't you? Don't you have a YouTube channel?" I don't think I like knew the full details or anything, but I asked him for a photo. So there's a photo meeting him, and I was like, I didn't realize how big he was. Actually, now it makes a little more sense because I was like, "Hey, I do a YouTube channel too," and he was like, "Mm-hmm." But if he's that popular, he probably gets people that are sort of like constantly trying to like get something out of him, right? Like, oh, you gotta plug me, man. You gotta plug my show. You gotta read my this or that. Oh, that makes a lot more sense now. Like that, I realize, as long as it's the person that I'm thinking of. Person I met like was a white guy, maybe a little pudgy like me, but like he had dyed hair. I want to say purple. Anyway, geez, I hope that didn't sound negative. I wasn't trying to say anything negative about him because I'm not in a place to say anything negative about him. Huh. Oh, I think don't both Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane also have like either YouTube or Twitch channels? I would imagine that they must be pretty massive. Derek says that what a coincidence, I drew Freddy for the first day of Inktober. That's awesome, man. I love it. Alright, some other questions. Are there any? Just comments? People just go to his channel to be lazy and not read comics. Well, I don't know who that's talking about, I'm afraid. Comic Storian is kind of like that Comic Explained guy. Do they do similar ideas? I don't even know if they do the same thing as me or not. I know they talk about comics. That's all I really, sort of all I really want to know, because I just don't want to be influenced by other comic book related channels. I watched a Jim Lee how to draw Wolverine tutorial on YouTube today and learned a lot about drawing arms and making them three-dimensional. That's awesome, Brendan. I taught Jim Lee everything he knows. One person says that some of those channels just read comics. I assume that like they just sort of like break down a comic book arc or something and explain what it sort of means within its context. You know, I'm sure that there's plenty of ways to just read a comic and sort of make jokes about it, because I do that sometimes when I do a smaller episode on something like a golden age superhero that time has forgotten. Like, all I'm really doing is sort of finding a story that probably not a lot of people have read, trying to give you the important salient details and poke some fun at it. Um, I just know that I do that. I I just don't want to do that every week or every episode. I want to sometimes dig in and try to find, like, I don't want to just say trivia, but like really sort of analyze what they were trying to do, and then, like, sort of say, was it successful or not? I guess I mean, at the end of the day, it's all just review. It's all criticism. My goal, and I'm not sure that I'm always successful, my goal is to try to contextualize it, as well as, comment on whether it worked or not, in my opinion. Good night, Coleman. Karen G says, so do you have the Scott McCloud Making Understanding Writing comic books? Those are awesome. I don't think I own them anymore, but I've definitely read them all. I definitely have read them all. Have I ever read Stray Bullets? Yes, and you know what? That would be a good topic, because I do feel like I haven't covered enough indie stuff in a little while. So David Latham's Stray Bullets could be a very interesting potential topic for the show. The next time I guess I've got a couple like indie things that I want to discuss, but I would call that indie personally, and I would like to cover Stray Bullets. I think that that's something that not necessarily every comic book reader knows. Sometimes I assume they do, but I'm not sure that they actually do. So that would be a good topic. I won't say much more right now because I don't want to. Yeah, let me try to think that through and figure out an angle on what I want to say about it. Good suggestion. Thanks. That was J. Andrew World, right? Pretty sure that was J. Andrew World. Moxnick says Stray Bullets episode would be great. Have you ever caught flack from industry people for critiques? Nope. I've never heard anything from anyone in the industry, really. No. I don't think I would expect to. Even when there's something that I'm criticizing an element of, there's not too much that I just outright crap on, and just say, like, this sucks. If I'm going to say that something's bad, I'm going to try to explain, like, what parts don't work for me, and why I think it, like, just wasn't approached the right way. But I'm not going to just say, like, it's crap. At least that's not my intention. And I would hope the average person seeing it would get that. But, maybe I have been a little cruel here and there. I don't know. I've tried to be honest. I try to be honest. There's stuff that I love. There's stuff that I don't love as much. I would generally rather focus on either something that I love or something that I feel is important to sort of a direction that comics went, something that influenced the industry or other creators. I would generally prefer to talk about, like, big moments like that, as compared to just like, this issue stunk, because it's like, well, okay, that doesn't work for you. Where do you go from there? Like, if you can explain why you don't like something, great. But you've stated your case, and I don't think there's a lot more to say. I don't know. I would not want to repeat the same criticisms about the same stuff. Like, I'll make a criticism if I think, like, I'm trying to think of, like, a comic. Like, let's just say, like, for some reason I didn't like Guardians of the Galaxy. Fine. I'll say I didn't like Guardians of the Galaxy because of X, Y, and Z. I think that, like, maybe this is what they were trying to do, but this is what they did, and this is why it doesn't work for me. Boom, I've done it. I don't want to, like, repeat that same criticism going, like, well, here's the next issue of Guardians. I don't know. It just, hopefully that makes sense what I'm explaining. Yeah, Sigmigs, you know that, like I say, your mileage may vary. I get that. I do think that comics are art. I don't know if they're necessarily very often high art, but they are a type of art. And I think that art is always going to be something that's very subjective. Something will work for some people and maybe not work for a lot of others. And that's just how it is. That's just being realistic. I'm going to use a technical pen for a little bit here. I hope it's clear though. Like I'm saying this, and it's like, but it's very important to me that I also don't just waffle and like walk the fence. You know, I don't want to just say like, well, I didn't like this, but other people do, so I guess it's okay. I'm trying to be clear. Like I do have opinions on these things. I'm gonna share them. I'm gonna do my best to explain why. What I'm concerned about is, do I always make that clear? Have I always made my point clearly? And the fact is, there are times I probably haven't, because I know that like people don't always get the point I'm trying to make. I think a lot of people misinterpreted what I was trying to say about Greg Land. I think a lot of people only took away that like they thought that I was saying using reference is bad. And that's not at all what I'm trying to say. There are lots of artists that I like that use reference pretty strongly. And I do too, like when I draw. Using reference isn't the problem. Like I was trying to make an argument that like using reference too much can ruin some of your storytelling skills. It can make you over-reliant on something. Anyway. J. Andrew World says, every time I say, your mileage may vary, he wants to take a shot in his comic tropes drinking game. I would be very curious to know what my personal tropes are. I'm talking like reflectively now, but in general, aside from when I do these live streams, I'm not spending a lot of time being too self-reflective. At least not yet, because I don't have the time to have that luxury. Eisner wrote the first textbook on comics. Yeah. Eisner, you can learn so much from Will Eisner. You can learn so much from him. He's definitely a master. An absolute master. I very much admire his work. Alright, what do I want to do here? I guess I want to... If you hear any weird sounds, one of my cats is sort of like just sort of chasing his tail and playing with shadows and stuff like that. And he's just sort of making a ruckus by my feet. I don't think you can hear it, but that is something that's going on. He's being very silly. I love it. At this point, I'm just sort of bouncing around between whatever sort of captures my attention on the page. There's not a lot of rhyme or reason to my approach, so there's probably not a lot I can explain because I don't think there's a lot you can learn. I'm tired, you know, and I'm just trying to sort of do my best. Alright, any questions? Have you ever read Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud? Yes, and for a while I taught a writing for comics class for a while when I was living in the DC area. I taught several semesters of that, and I would have that as like one of the core textbooks. Like I think that there's a lot that you can learn from there about how comic books work. I think Scott McCloud wrote an excellent tome. Would you ever guest star on Ethan Van Sciver's channel? Well, he's never invited me. I didn't even know that he had one. I am familiar with who he is. I didn't know that he had a YouTube channel. I mean, he's a comic book artist, and as I recall, a very conservative one. So, I mean, if he invited me on, I mean, I guess so. I don't know why he would, because I'm not a professional like him. So I don't, unless that's something he does he like interview YouTube people? I wouldn't think he'd have the time for that. He's the one that like worked on Green Lantern a few years ago, right? I'm pretty sure that that's the guy. Folks, I'm not an expert on everything in comics. The DC area. You lived in Gotham. Yeah, I lived in Gotham, exactly. Where in DC? I took a class from Tom DeHaven in Richmond. Specifically, I was living in Alexandria for like 10 years. I worked and lived in that area. So, Northern Virginia. And my fiance, when I met her, had an apartment in the heart of DC in Adams Morgan. And so I was going into DC all the time. Plus, you just go in there just to meet friends and do stuff. So, yeah, DC was alright. It's an interesting city. Definitely a lot of policy wonks and people that like are just really into talking and politics and want to debate you in politics, and you're like, that's okay, I'm good. Let's see, what do I want to do? I think I'm going to have to bring this shadow down here. I want to accomplish what I'm going after. I'll put in an eyeball here. Sort of make it cat-like, just to be a little different. Alright, let's see. He got out of his contract with DC and he is now a freelance and has become a YouTube personality, putting out his own comics, and his channel is dope and very welcoming despite his views. Oh, okay. Let's see. Russell Duffer says, comment on Matt Wagner's Mage as opposed to his Grendel. Chris, what are your favorite horror comics? Oh, that's an interesting question. What are my favorite horror comics? I mean, of course I loved all the EC stuff, Tales of Suspense and suspense stories, and Tales from the Vault, and Tales from the Crypt. All that stuff's awesome. What else is good? I mean, I would count Walking Dead as a horror comic, and I have good things to say about Walking Dead's comic. What else do I like for horror? There was a short-lived Friday the 13th series by Wildstorm that I thought got some really good writers and artists working on it. It worked kind of like an anthology series, but I liked most of that. But you have to sort of be a fan of the character to really think it's good, probably. I'm trying to think. A lot of horror is anthologies, isn't it? There have been some really creepy books written by Joshua Fialkov. The Bunker, I feel, is kind of like, it's sci-fi, but I feel like that's pretty scary. What else is disturbing? I mean, I guess I find the most disturbing comics like non-fiction accounts of like real bad stuff. Like there's a book about the Green River Killer, a serial killer from this area, like the Seattle area, and the son of one of the detectives that got him to confess, like wrote and illustrated a. Did he illustrate it? He at least wrote it, like a comic book about who that was. Or Durf Backdurf wrote a story, My Friend Dahmer, about like his years in high school, going to high school with Jeffrey Dahmer, who later became, a pretty notorious serial killer. So I think that like non-fiction stuff can be pretty horrific. If you've read like Joe Sacco's comics, like about like war areas, if you've read Guy Delisle's stories of like what it's like to live and work in North Korea, that stuff's pretty horrific because it's real, you know? Have I ever published before? Is it tough to self-publish? It's not that tough to self-publish. I have self-published a bunch of stuff. Not in the last few years, but I've done a bunch. No, it's not that hard. Was the My Friend Dahmer movie good? I haven't seen it yet. Good question. Don't know. Did you ever read Death Force from your subscription box? No. I don't know Death Force. Sorry. Somebody says, oh, I see. Sienkiewicz would be a fascinating episode. I would love to discuss Bill Sienkiewicz in detail. The closest I have right now is I do review the sort of origin of the character Legion. It mostly just focuses on the character, a little bit of Chris Claremont's writing tropes, but I do talk a little bit about Bill Sienkiewicz's unique art style, but not a lot. I don't go too in depth, and I would love to at some point. Since you like to travel, how many states have you been to, Chris? What's from Sigamigs? I don't know off the top of my head, first of all, so I'm just sort of like thinking of what I've probably been to something like 32, maybe up to 35. Would you ever cover more Judge Dredd stories? Probably. Probably. I wish I had more time for this channel, folks, because when a comic book creator passes away, I'm like, oh, I'd love to discuss what that person meant to me or meant to the industry. Just like sort of a reminder of how good someone was, And the reason I mentioned that is it's tied in, and Carlos Ezquerra passed away this past week. And he was the co-creator of Judge Dredd, Strontium Dog. Really cool artist. Really, really cool artist that, even just Judge Dredd alone, like, that's a pretty massive accomplishment. And I would love to do an episode about him. And I don't have, like, I wasn't expecting him to die, right? So I don't have any plans to already do that. And I don't have the time to jam him in right now. Norm Brayfogle, Maurice Severin, these are artists who passed away recently, and I would love to talk about what they mean, because of course people's interest is a little bit higher right when a comic book creator passes away, and I'd love to be able to sort of serve that interest and help people remember and contextualize their legacies. I would love to do that. But I don't have the time usually to sort of jam in an extra episode. I wish I did. So yes, will I at some point talk about Judge Dredd again? Most likely. There's a lot to say about Judge Dredd. A lot of great artists and writers have worked on him. So, maybe next time it's more of an episode about 2000 AD in general, or maybe it's about the specific artist like Brian Boland, and we just have a segment where we're talking kind of in depth about his work on Judge Dredd. That's entirely likely. But, yes, I will talk about Judge Dredd again at some point. Karen G says, I've been to a grand total of 7 states. I don't know how many I've been to, but I could start listing where I've been. Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Colorado, Illinois, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Missouri, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee, um, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Hawaii, Puerto Rico. I know that's not a state, but it's part of America. One or two of the U.S. Virgin Islands. I don't know. I'm probably forgetting a couple, I guess. As you can see, there's big patches in the middle that I need to visit. Kansas, I've been to. I haven't been to Texas. I need to get to Texas. All right. Let's see. Where am I on this? Nowhere. I would love to be able to hit all 50 states. I'd love to go up to Alaska sometime. They do cruises out of Seattle that go up to Alaska, and you can see the ice shelves from the ocean, which is supposed to be quite beautiful. I think that would be interesting. Alright, I guess I'm getting a little quiet. Let's see. Enough about travel, right? Who cares where I've been? We care about where I'm going with this drawing. So I'm just trying to get the basics of the fabric pattern, and then I'm actually going to go back and probably add some more wear and tear and shading in certain areas, but just trying to get in the important parts and like darken up some of the most important areas. We'll see how it goes. That is my current goal. Seem to be accomplishing it more or less. Oh wow! What? Kim, didn't you already give me a super chat tonight? That's so silly. Thank you. That's so kind. Have I taken any professional art lessons? Yes, but not a lot. I haven't formally been trained in any art, and I would say the vast majority of what I've learned is self-taught. When I was still in junior high, I took a summer course at I want to say the Art Institute of Boston, I think it was called. I was pretty young, obviously. I can't really remember exactly what it was called. And it was like a cartooning class, and there were live models because they were teaching us to draw from life first before we sort of got silly with it. So that was formal. That was probably like the first sort of formal class that I took, and then let's see, in college, like I just had an elective course to fill, and I took like another art course there, but it was kind of a medley of a bunch of different art stuff. So there wasn't a lot of illustration there, and that's about it for like that. And then I love everyone. I can talk English. I love every once in a while to go to something like a drink and draw or a Dr. Sketchy's type thing where you can just draw from life, you know, where you get a model. I love doing that stuff. So, yeah, that's all I was trying to say. cool question. There are some great YouTube art lesson channels. That's true. Nude models, Sigmig says. Yup. Save your money, learn to draw from YouTube. Well, you can learn from a lot of different sources, so I'm definitely not against like looking at YouTube for lessons and inspiration. Like that is definitely a fine idea. But I do think that like drawing an actual model is a very specific type of learning that's very important to being able to become a good artist. I really think you learn a lot from trying to represent a model within a certain amount of time. Um, there's just nothing else like it, and especially in like a group when you can like see what other people are doing to sort of see how they approach it. That's learning in a very helpful and unique way. My cat's still playing with like bits of fluff and stuff that he'll find. He's amusing me. So yeah, if anybody out there is thinking of becoming an artist, that's like one of the things I recommend the most strongly is draw from life. If you can see an actual like live nude model, it's a tremendous opportunity. If you can't, just take a sketchbook out to like a park and draw what you see. It's gonna help a lot. A lot, a lot. Yeah, if you want to be a good comic book artist, you're gonna need to draw people and things in real settings. I don't know what could help you more. Can you take life drawings at CC? I don't know what that is. Community college? Probably. I'm at the AI Art Institute in San Fran. That's awesome. Agreed, draw from life. It helped my career. Yeah, so it's really important. Life drawing was by far the most beneficial, so I'll agree there. I feel bad in how I use my art books because I mostly look at the pictures instead of reading the text. That's fine. Anyway, yeah, I'm glad a bunch of people agree. There's just nothing quite the same as drawing from life. You can copy other art, you can learn from that. You can watch videos of how other artists approach their craft, but none of it's going to quite advance you as fast as forcing yourself to draw from life, especially in a formal setting. So how many cars did all of you sell today? I'm just kidding. That isn't a relevant question. Yeah, this is coming along well. I get quiet sometimes when I'm doing a detail and I'm like kind of happy with the result. I'm sort of like thinking things through. So every once in a while when I get quiet, it's just because I've sort of gotten myself lost in the process, and it's very easy to lose track of time when you're drawing and when you start like sort of getting lost in the actual details. That's I don't know. I've always worried that I don't have necessarily good fundamentals. Um, I like I think I can handle texture and certain detail okay. Shading, not so much. what I'm definitely trying. One of the things I'm trying to improve on here. So yeah, little insight into me. It's all about me, is it? Questions. Let's see. He did a. You're all having a conversation with each other. I can't break in. Okay, no questions right now, so I'll come back in a little bit. Sigamig said no car sold. A couple other people say no car sold. I did sell a car today, so I'm afraid that might make me the #1 car seller in this room today. I usually sell at least one car a day at this point. It's all right. It's interesting. It's definitely not what I ever expected to be doing. But it's relatively stress-free. It's not a very stressful job. It's paying the bills just enough. So I hope that sometimes I can find something that's like in my field in marketing again, or we'll see. We'll see. Until then, I'm surviving. Until next week, keep surviving. How's that for a catchphrase? And until next week, remember to eat food and breathe air. How about, and until next week, keep drinking water. Whoa, Mikey Jesus with another super chat. What are some of your favorite horror movies? Some of my favorite. Okay. Jaws, Evil Dead 2, Alien. It Follows. What else? The original Halloween. The Thing. The Thing is way up there. Dude, this doesn't feel the same. Oh, sorry. What did I do wrong? What do you think of Elric of Menaborn? Don't know anything about Elric. Sorry, don't know. Foof says he likes Hellraiser. I like the first Hellraiser. I really don't care for any of the sequels, but the first one's not too bad. I like all sorts of horror, man. That new movie Mandy really spoke to me. Or at least it was interesting. Maybe it didn't speak to me per se, but I thought it was cool. I thought it was really cool. Yeah, definitely wasn't. You can't quite expect what it gives you, but you have to be patient too. It's got a slow first half. It's quite a slow burn, but I think I'm a pretty patient person. Some interesting in-universe Thing comics out there. Are there? That's interesting to hear. I think I read one sequel at one point, but I don't really remember it too well right now. So that's interesting to hear that there's several. Huh. Well, cool. I'll have to look into that. Oh, Freddy, you and your creepy sweater. See, with a sweater, I can just sort of, if I'm bored, put a few little weird lines like this, and it indicates sort of a prickly wool. And it's fun, because it's Contrasting lines that are going every which way. What fun! What fun we're all having! Whee! What if the thing was the thing? What if? What if? Yeah. The alien thing could look like anything, so it could look like Ben Grimm thing. And we'd never know until it sort of stopped doing wise-ass quips. I don't know about this drawing. I feel like it's not really scary, maybe? I don't know what to say. Oh well, I'll just keep going. Maybe it'll turn into something alright. I think I've sort of, at the very least, I've fulfilled my obligation to myself in terms of I wanted to draw for at least an hour for every Inktober. So far, so good there. Hope I can keep it up. There's definitely a bunch of stuff that I'd love to draw that haven't really drawn before. I'd love to draw certain X-Men characters, or New Mutants anyway. I'd love to draw Mr. Miracle. I've never tried to draw any of the New Gods, I don't think, so that could be kind of fun. What else do I want to draw? I think I want to draw Judge Dredd one day. And I'm not like trying to plan it out for like specific days yet. I'm trying to let the inspiration hopefully hit me, but yeah, definitely got all sorts of stuff that I still want to draw this month. You know what I think I want to draw? You guys will probably not find this day too interesting. I want to draw Frasier Crane. I like Frasier. I think that show's funny. I feel like I don't know. I just sort of rediscovered it on Netflix recently, and I was like, Jesus, this is a lot funnier than I even remember it being. It's really holds up pretty darn well, in my opinion, anyway. So yeah, I think I'd like to draw Frasier. Probably not something most comic book readers necessarily care about, but hopefully there's at least a few people that get a kick out of that idea. So few ideas that don't fit in with, like, traditional superhero stuff here and there, but there's a lot of characters I'd really love to take a crack at. Maybe some vehicles too. Maybe some vehicles. Are you going to try some nibs and brushwork this month? Asks J. Andrew World. Fantastic question. I hope to, and it really will depend on time. If I have a day off and I've already sort of completed the main comic tropes episode that week, then yes, I would love to dedicate some time to draw with either a brush or a nib and just sort of practice with that stuff. And it will really just depend if I feel that I've got enough time to do a drawing with that, because I work slower with those tools because I'm not as much, I just don't use them as much, So anyway, hope that makes sense. That is my intent. Oh, you know what I just thought of? This Friday is the Greek festival down the street that happens once a year. I love me some Greek food. Oh, I'm so excited. I just realized that I've got a big Greek festival coming up. Oh, you guys all go to like Greek festivals when like a church holds one of those and they have their various, I don't know, salads and um, what else do they have that's really good? Like those desserts. They have domatas. They have sort of types of shish kebabs. I don't know what they call them. You get some good Mediterranean food at a Greek festival. Oh, just realized that's coming up this Friday. That is something I'm excited about now. I'm excited about food. I love baklava. Yes, baklava. No Buona Beast. I would definitely not draw a Tom Brady sucks sketch. I don't know if you guys remember, but I am from Boston, so that would definitely not be something I would ever illustrate. You could pay me a million. Like I'm totally serious. You could offer me $1 million, and I probably wouldn't want to draw that. I'd just be like, nah, I don't need $1 million. Does anyone know why Kitty Pryde barely shows up in the cartoons or movies? She seemed like the main character of X-Men for several years. Marketability. It's all about Wolverine and Deadpool. And then maybe stuff like Storm, Cyclops, and Jean Grey, Beast. Really more Magneto and Professor X. She's a great character. Totally agree. Oh. Got a friend at work that's a little gullible. I really like him, but I can't help myself. I can't help myself. The other day I was gonna do what's called like splitting a sale, like where we each get half. Just because like I'd set it all up, but I wanted to leave on time, so I couldn't find him. So I sent him a text. I was like, "Hey, where are you?" He's like, "Out on a test drive with a customer." Okay. Um, Reach over and put your foot on the gas. I write, uh, because Dwayne Johnson is here, and he types back right away. Really? I'm like, no, but I do have a potential split I want to talk with you about. He's like, okay, and then as soon as he says okay, I go, and also The Rock is here. Seriously? No! I just was messing with you. What do you mean, seriously? Why would The Rock be buying a car from us? No. Hey, this is The Rock. I can't do a Rock impression. This is just, for these purposes, a Rock voice. Hey, this is The Rock. You got a 2014 Nissan Altima? That's what I'm interested in buying, and I'd be willing to put down up to $3,000 today if I could find one of those. No, I don't think that that's what The Rock's going to be doing with his free time. I thought I was being completely ridiculous, but then he's like, seriously? It's like, no! No, I'm not serious. I'm being ridiculous. Putting some holes in Freddy's sweater, because, hey, why not? I have the power to do that. Freddy has no power to stop me from putting holes in his sweater. Take that, you evil demon. it's probably, this is Slime Beharit talking about why maybe why Kitty Pryde doesn't show up in too much stuff. And he says maybe it's because she was replaced by Jubilee. Maybe. Uh, and then she was sort of replaced later by who? Who was Wolverine's next protege? I mean, in the movies it was Rogue, but was Armor at one point sort of like Wolverine's new protege? Or am I misremembering that? I feel like there was another young female mutant that sort of took on that role, and that's just something that just sort of happens because Wolverine works pretty well as a gruff mentor to like a young female superhero mutant. Just seems to work. But obviously that was originally set up with Kitty Pryde, but it's just that she's just sort of evolved into a more mature adult kind of character, and they just couldn't keep using her as like the most naive X-Men. She'd just been in too many stories. Just didn't feel plausible anymore for her to be completely naive and defenseless. I like Kitty Pryde. I think she's a cool character. You know, that makes me think of how weird aging is in comics because she started like she looked like she was 12, and then in comics these days, I feel like they sort of draw her more like she's 18. But then a character like Franklin Richards has gone from being like a baby to being like 5, and then certain other characters like the Power Pack haven't really aged at all. It's all over the place in terms of how characters in comic books age. It's not really a problem per se. It's just you can't think about it too much because it never makes sense. Some characters age a little bit and others just don't. It's more about whatever feels right. And it's also like I don't think they plan on having people read consistently for like, a 40-year span or something. It's more designed for people that are reading for like 10 years. First comic I purchased with my own money was X-Men number 129, her first appearance. That's from JoJo. Power Pack in their 40s would be crazy. I've got a weird Power Pack thing I might review someday. We'll see. Power Pack is not really my favorite Marvel comic. To me, they don't work that well. I understand the niche that they're trying to fill with Power Pack, but I feel like it just talks down to kids too much compared to like what they're trying to do, and that they've told better versions of those stories with just young superheroes. It could be the New Warriors or the New Mutants, or it could just be youngish characters like went from Spider-Man to Nova, Speedball, Miles Morales, etc. I just don't think that they've ever really nailed it with Power Pack. Feels a little too preachy to me. But you know what? Maybe there's somebody out there that loves what they've done with Power Pack. I guess they probably have their fans. I'd be very curious to hear why somebody out there would call themselves voluntarily like a Power Pack fan. Like what story did they have that was good and why did it speak to them? Oh, yeah, be very curious. So I'd be like, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. This is taking a while to sort of nail down a lot of this shading, but it's kind of fun. I will admit, it is kind of fun. Chris, did you ever get into Valiant? If you did, what was your favorite comic of theirs? I did read a bunch of Valiant in the 90s. I don't know that I had much in terms of a favorite. Trying to think. I guess it was probably Exo Manowar, because I feel like I at least sort of remember some of those stories and the art. Yeah. I was a fairly... No, well, I guess I remember a little bit of Archer and Armstrong, too. That's about it. I guess I'm not a great fan, huh? Because I don't claim to be. Just didn't really speak to me that much. There were good artists and writers working on it, so I was reading some of it, but it just never quite worked for me. I don't know if I'll necessarily finish this. I'm getting really tired because I feel like I'm not really answering your questions right now. So I've sort of zoned out a little bit. I don't want to be a bad host, you know? Who do you prefer, the old Freddy or the new Freddy? Well, definitely the old Freddy, the original. The only Freddy Krueger that ever worked was in the first few movies. Like one through three are pretty good. Four's okay. New Nightmare's okay. But yeah, Robert Englund all the way. Jackie Earl Haley is a good actor, but that was a bad movie. That was just a bad movie. Yeah, I guess I'm fading because I feel like my conversation skills have plummeted. Hopefully, watching this get drawn and just hearing my every once in a while muttering is going to just sort of soothe someone to sleep down the road. They'll watch an archived version of this and just be like, now this is the ASMR for me. This dolt who just goes quiet for long stretches and at least doesn't screech like a harpy when he finally decides to natter on. Yes, yes, that's for me. Ah. Colleen Doran did some good work on Valor, which I thought was a pretty underrated book. Valor. What do you think of Freddy vs. Jason? I think Freddy vs. Jason was a blast. I liked that one. That totally worked for me. Kind of too bad Kane Hodder couldn't have been part of it, but I liked it. I thought that was a fun movie. As far as a versus movie goes, might be my favorite. Unless you count something like Captain America Civil War, I guess that's a type of versus movie. I like that. But superheroes are definitely a little different than anything else. What's the deal with being tired at midnight? I like Colleen Doran's Orbiter with Warren Ellis. Oh, I don't think I've read that, but that sounds like a cool team up of talents. I would be interested in reading that. Orbiter, huh? I like the sound of that. For whatever reason, the way I just talked a second ago reminded me of comedian John Mulaney, who I very much enjoy. And that reminds me in turn of the new trailer for the animated Spider-Man movie, the animated Miles Morales movie, Into the Spider-Verse. Oh man, that totally seems to be my jam. I've said before, I like Miles Morales, and I like Dan Slott's run, including the Spider-Verse stuff and the Superior Spider-Man stuff. Totally works for me. I think Jake Johnson is a pretty funny guy. So they've got a cool voice cast there that works for me. Totally works for me. As in, they actually work for me, folks. Oh, Brendan, thank you so much. That's really, really kind of you. I appreciate it. Foof, John Mulaney isn't Spider Pig. Spider Pig is from Simpsons. No, John Mulaney plays Spider-Ham. Peter Porker, the spectacular Spider-Ham, who I was very amused with growing up. I read any Spider-Ham book that Marvel would put out. I found those very funny. Raven the Hunter. That was a funny one. What were some of the other really good ones? Goose Rider instead of Ghost Rider. What were some other really good ones? I can't remember them all now. It's been too long. But I always found the silly animal versions of Marvel superheroes very entertaining. Well, reckon I'm getting close. I don't know how many of you follow Jason Latour on social media. He's the artist of Southern Bastards and the writer of Spider-Gwen, co-creator of Spider-Gwen, I believe. Yeah, and he's somebody that I've known for a long, long time. Anyway, I follow him on social media because he cracks me up. He's got interesting stories. And today, he was on a plane to, I believe, North Carolina. Bill Murray was sitting a few aisles ahead of him. So when he got off the plane, Jason paused and said, "Mr. Murray?" And Bill Murray just sort of, was expecting maybe like a fan. He's just been sleeping for the plane, whatever. He's just sort of tired. He's like, Jason goes, "I want to be like you if I ever grow up." And apparently Bill Murray gave that a big belly laugh. So that was a cool little story. Definitely follow Jason Latour on social media. He's interesting, he's funny, and he's showing little hints of an upcoming Silver Surfer project he's working on that look really interesting. So I'm a little biased, but yeah, I think that you definitely enjoy and get something out of following him on social media, like Twitter at least. That's my recommendation for the day. Whew, I know, I feel terrible when I go quiet like this. I bet a bunch of you are dropping out, and that's totally fine. I'm surprised you didn't like JMS's run on Amazing Spider-Man, considering the Spider-Verse seeds were planted in it. I guess they sort of were. That's sort of true. I don't really like Moreland. I don't find him a tremendously interesting villain. But I liked Spider-Verse because it was just fun to see all the different versions of Spider-Man working together. Moxnick says, "This new Green Lantern should be exciting. And thanks again. I'm off to work. Really appreciate the chat and watching the inking." Great, great. Thank you for joining me. Very much appreciated. Very much appreciated. Who would win in a fight between Freddy Krueger and Pinhead? And why? Who would win and why? That's a thinker, huh? That's one that we'll all go to bed thinking about. Who would win? Who would win in a fight between Freddy and Jason? Who would win in a fight between Freddy and Jason? And yes, I'm just doing a bad Neil Hamburger voice there because I'm tired and it seemed like it would be fun. And you know what? It was. Hey, I wonder if that Ant-Man 2 movie is coming out on Blu-ray pretty soon. I think I want to see that one again. I kind of liked it. I bet it does come out pretty soon. I bet it does. Now don't fight me on this one. I think it probably does. No wonder. The lead Cenobite from Hellraiser, who was Pinhead. Oh, I see. Guess nobody has any opinions on that one. Have you watched the documentary about the Masters of the Universe film? I haven't, but I've read a bunch of articles before. I'm pretty familiar with how troubled that production was and how Canon Films basically just refused to pay much of anything for it and just held Mattel hostage to get it complete. They had to end up paying for basically the whole thing. Pretty shady business. But Canon was a hilarious company. There's a good documentary about them. Something or other Electric Boogaloo, and I can't remember exactly what the... I feel like there's something more than just Electric Boogaloo, but I don't remember the full title of that documentary right now. Just a little too tired to think about it. But if you know, feel free to contribute in the comments, folks. Feel free. Always. I think I'm about ready to wrap this up. Just sort of say, you know what? Maybe not 100% complete, but more complete than not. And tired. Been working a long time. I think we see where it's going. Don't think that there's going to be any surprises here. Would you agree, folks? Pinhead. Okay. C. Kim says Pinhead. Fair enough. Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo? No. Not the Breaking movies. They took the subtitle for that, for this documentary about Canon Films. Did you happen to use the McFarlane figure for reference? No. I think I owned that back in the day, though. But I don't think he looked quite like this. Sure, Scrent. Your vote for the Candyman is noted. Yeah, I feel like that's about all I can really do for this to make it look halfway decent. You know, it's okay. I don't know. I'm sure that several of you out there are slightly better artists, but I appreciate you, just sort of hanging out and asking questions, help encourage me to keep drawing. Super appreciate the super chats. Hope that is obvious and clear. Like that just really helps. It's very much appreciated. Yeah, I had a good time tonight. I really did. Just a little out of it. Will admit to that, but who cares? It was fun. He's in a similar pose to the figure, which is why what I used for reference. Well, let me look this up. So it's a McFarlane. The McFarlane toys. Let me see what that guy looks like. McFarlane toys. Freddy Krueger, I guess. Yeah. Freddy Krueger. That looks like a cool figure. I guess I didn't have this one when I was a kid. But, don't really see anything that matches this exactly. There's a lot of different versions, though. Anyway, you forgot the stripes? No, I didn't exactly forget them. I was just planning on doing them in possibly like Copic markers. But honestly, like this took a long time just to sort of get this far, and now I'm kind of tired. So there's a closer look at him. Something wrong about his eye, basically. I just didn't get the eye right. Let me see if there's anything I can do there. I don't know why. It just doesn't look right. I guess I meant to put it back further. I mean, I could always white it out and try to correct it, or correct it in something like Photoshop, but yeah, I feel like I didn't get the eye right at all. I definitely wanted him to be looking this way a lot more. And I think that some colors would definitely have assisted with everything. It's okay. I'm not embarrassed by this, but you know, I can definitely see plenty of room for improvement as well. But that's the whole point of this thing, is to you know, just improve yourself. So I don't expect to be perfect. I'm trying to just understand when I need to walk away and say, well, that's as good as I can do it. And now let's take a breather, take a pause, step back and say, what could I improve in the future? That's what I envision this all for anyway. Alright, he got literally roasted to death. Yes, he did. I had the glove and I wore it to Freddy's Dead when it was in the theater. That's awesome. Alright, folks, I'm going to call it there. I think that that's about all I can do today. What is tomorrow's prompt? I'm just going to take a quick peek. Let's see what tomorrow's prompt is. Tomorrow's prompt is spell. Spell. So obviously there could be magic, it could be spelling like a word, if that somehow relates. Spell. You could sit a spell, spell it out. Yeah, I gotta think about it. Probably I'll have something to do with magic. Probably. I'll think about it. But tomorrow I'll be back. My goal is to have it at a much earlier time than today. Today was quite late. Hopefully if I can have it at a good hour in the afternoon, that's more convenient for more people. So we'll see. Yeah, people are suggesting things like Zatanna. Zatanna, I haven't drawn a lady yet so far. So one of the girls from Tarot, probably not. Just not a lot of interest. The one thing I would say is the foreshortening is weird. I feel like I didn't really do much in terms of foreshortening, to be honest, other than maybe like these two knives, but yeah, I'm going to draw Nico Minoru. Oh, Nico Minoru, that's a good suggestion. I like the idea of drawing a lady. Let me think about it, folks. I had a good time. Obviously, I'm tired. I'm going to take off. Thank you all for the questions. It means a lot to me. Thank you for the super chats. I never know exactly how to end these, but I'm going to try to end it definitively. We're done. Thank you. Good night. All right. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Mwah.